Hi there, I'm Dr. Marion Long and I'm the founder of the Rhythm for Reading programme. This week's post is on the topic of addiction. There's a rhythmic element to addiction, which is why it's always interested me from a research point of view. There's actually a lot of information available online, mainly from experiments involving rodents, but also post-mortem studies of human brains. Today, I'm not talking about the rhythm of addiction. I'm here to talk about addiction in young people and why, as educators, I feel we must wade in and really advocate for the children and their parents. When I'm teaching a diligent 10-year-old who enjoys learning, but repeatedly spaces out in a completely uncharacteristic way, I take notice. And when, after reminders to stay focused, the problem persists, I might then ask, are you any good at video games? The hedonic smile gives it all away, as does the reply. I'm quite good and I'm getting better with practice. Oh, yes, you are, I reply, because it's obvious to me that something fundamental has changed in the child. So upon asking the child's mother about this, I learned that there's a time limit on using the screens at weekdays, but a chance to do more at weekends. This might sound very reasonable, but I am confident that 30 minutes per day building a skill is going to result in a change, not only in their progress, but also in their neural wiring. How can I say this with so much confidence? Because I've read all about the changes in neural wiring following 30 minutes a day of piano practice in the psychology of music literature. But there's more to this than building skills and learning new techniques. As we all know, many young people have become addicted to screens, and I have actually spoken to many parents who are struggling with the spiral of aggressive behaviours associated with addiction in teenagers. So in this post, I'm drawing on a paper by Koob and colleagues. It was published in 2014, that's 10 years ago, and the title is Addiction as a Stress Surfeit Disorder, and it's published in issue 76 of Neuropharmacology. Now, neuroscience tells us this. Emotional intensity plus repetition will bring stronger neural connectivity. And we can see this form of cumulative learning playing out in sports, music, dance, and any other activities involving playful repeated input. Imagine doing 30 minutes of weight training every day. You would see a physical change very quickly. So when persuading children to practice reading, we tell them that 10 minutes of daily reading practice will make a difference. And it's true, 10 minutes of daily practice will result in a child's reading attainment improving. So what is changing? If we practice the same activity with the same level of intention and commitment, we send our brain a memo that we are adopting a new way of living and need to adapt. Learning is one of the ways that we can deliberately choose to adapt or aspire to a new environment. If our new activities are rewarded with points, social prestige, or praise, or even food, or some other form of affirmation, then the learning is reinforced. Our brains also provide reinforcements through feel-good chemicals called beta endorphins, mu opioids, and endocannabinoids. These are released during and after exercise and are usually referred to as a runner's high. In large-scale music festivals involving lots of people, beta endorphins, mu opioids, and oxytocin bring everyone together into a sense of community. And oxytocin, of course, is the so-called love hormone. Humans have enjoyed the inherently motivating positive rewards of staying active and socializing together through music, singing, dance, and food, so that they can build social bonds, and we have done this for millennia. But these special events always came and went with the changes and midpoints in the seasons, and they were certainly not a part of mundane everyday life. It really does take a long time to achieve a natural high through exercise, music, or dance. And following the event, people need to come down again so as to regulate the nervous system and to return to a balanced state. But artificial stimulants, which come in so many different forms, are now available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they hijack the brain's internal pharmacy, and this disrupts the balance of the regulatory system. So with daily use, there is no time to recover. And this is how a spiral into addiction can begin. Now, some people are more susceptible to addiction than others. And researchers have seen that people with an allostatic load, which is also known as a chronic deviation of the regulatory system, are more likely to become addicted to artificial stimulants. So let's look at the 3 stages associated with addiction. In phase 1, there is no real addiction. This phase is the fun part, and it involves binge and intoxication. The overactive reward circuit is affected by intense arousal, emotion, expectation, and particular behaviours that become associated with pleasure, also known as hedonic activation. A longer, more intense period of exposure to the stimulus produces a more positive hedonic response at first, but tolerance builds quickly. And when this happens, the reward loses its initial impact, and the user needs to ramp up the effort to reach the same high once the tolerance has built up. At this precarious stage, the reward system has an important role to play. It prioritizes homeostasis and seeks to redress the imbalance of overactivated reward. It does this through withdrawal. The effects of withdrawal are to depress the intensity of the reward by flattening the emotional experience through a slower build-up and a lingering but dull decay, which makes the whole thing seem very boring and very disappointing. Let's move into phase 2. This is the point at which the person enters a transition to real addiction. This is the withdrawal and negative effects stage. Once the withdrawal process is established, the addictive behaviour is wanted, but it no longer gives pleasure because the withdrawal system pushed the threshold up so high that the experience of reward cannot be reached unless the person escalates their intake. In this stage, natural rewards no longer motivate a person, so they might lose interest in their friends, food, being in nature, family, and even their pets. This is because the brain circuits have been rewired. The reward system has become hypoactive. And the anti-reward system comes online and produces stress-like states, which are fear-based and originate in the now hyperactive amygdala. Acute withdrawal results in anxiety, irritability, and place aversion. These are the depressive and dysphoric symptoms that are associated with withdrawal to drugs of abuse, such as cocaine. Now let's move into phase 3. In this phase, we have the preoccupation and anticipation stage of addiction. A person in the 3rd phase experiences constant cravings. The wiring of the brain has adapted to the addiction once again. The prefrontal cortex is hypofunctioning, which means that the person has lost most, if not all, of their capacity to make choices and to suppress unwanted behaviour. So even if they wanted to quit the behaviours, they wouldn't be able to because they've lost access to the part of their brain that actually gives them the willpower and the choice to do so. So this person is unable to access cognitive control and inhibition that's also needed for schoolwork. or for interacting with other people as they would have done before the addiction began. As well as losing access to the decision-making functions of the brain, their loss of inhibitive control allows the subconscious to dominate this person's behaviour. This is the stage where the addiction becomes compulsive because the subconscious is no longer inhibited and the frontal cortex has become impaired. This is so sad. The part of the brain associated with planning, for example, a future career, performance in working memory, such as making calculations in STEM subjects, foresight, for example, mitigating, preventing and avoiding risks, cognitive flexibility, for example, using creativity in problem solving, task switching, such as toggling between languages, and inhibition, for instance, suppressing inappropriate impulses. All of these skills, which are known as the executive functions, first started to appear at the beginning of schooling, and they don't even mature until the young people are 24 years of age or so. These are all now unavailable. According to the studies I've read, those with addiction cannot recover the altered circuitry once the damage has been done. And leading voices in education are now talking openly about the changes that they're seeing in teenagers' learning and behaviour. Even last night on BBC Question Time, the topic of addiction in school-aged children was discussed. Addiction is by no means a new problem, and experts such as the authors of the paper I'm referencing here have known for at least a decade that unless addiction is addressed in the first phase and reversed, the structural changes to the brain's limbic system and the frontal areas become permanent. It's wishful thinking to assume that someone will appear with a marvellous cure to reverse the damage. But I think our best course of action as educators is to push really hard for prevention. We need to circulate information that empowers parents. They need to know about the real harm that addiction brings. I have spoken to parents who are living with teenagers in phase 2 and phase 3, and they say the children need urgent help. They're dealing with amazing levels of aggression, and everybody in those households really does need a lot of help. So I've decided to speak up and to put a stake in the ground for prevention. And for my own conversations with parents who have children in phase 1, there's been quite a range of responses. Some of them have told me to basically mind my own business, and others have told me thank you. And then they've let me know that certain apps have been deleted from the device that their child uses. So every time we have a conversation about preventing addiction, we seize the opportunity to inspire parents to keep their child safe. We can also offer them reassurance, and when we do this, we will encourage positive action and limit the potential for long-term harm. Thank you so much for staying with me to the end of this post on such a heavy subject. If you'd like further information, I'm leaving the links for you to contact me, and if you feel that you need help for your child, please contact your GP as soon as possible. There will also be a link to join a live webinar, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you, and bye for now.